I'm Monique and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much for cheering for me, Jenna, and thanks for the meeting and thanks for asking me to share Byron. I'm sitting with a lot of gratitude today, and I like that little sign there that says, "But for the grace of God," because for the grace of God, I'm sitting here today. And also a lot of people on my journey have helped me get to where I am today, because I'm not sitting here, by the grace of my own doing. There's been a lot of people who have impacted me on my journey in a positive way. Just to go back a bit about my childhood, first it feels so quick. Like I shared my 1 year not so long ago, well, obviously a year ago, but it just feels like it was like yesterday. Like Keith always says, time flies when you're having fun. I remember when I was very small, so I have a twin sister, my mom and dad. They've always been, they've been great parents. I grew up without asking really for much, because my parents really provided me with a beautiful life, my sister and I. Even though my dad wasn't really in the picture, my mom was there, and I kind of feel like she was a single mom. I guess I was also resentful towards my dad because I didn't really understand why he was never there, like he missed birthdays, Christmases, and whatever else. But in hindsight, he was just doing it just to give, myself, my sister, and my mom a better life. My sister has always been one person who's always had my back, but kind of with my perception being warped from a very young age, I always thought that, everything was a competition with her. And I always thought that my parents, favored my sister more, really. Just looking back at my upbringing with my sister is, we had all the same opportunities, same education, same everything, start in life, but what I chose to do with that was very different to my sister. And I think where I started to realize I wasn't okay, and my family started to realize I wasn't okay, it was in grade 5. I remember every Sunday before school I would make myself sick, like my body just automatically got sick. And my mom was very worried, and where it stemmed from was a teacher told me that I was stupid because of my handwriting, and I held on to that for a very long time. So a lot of fear, insecurity around people, what they thought of me, my capabilities in life has always been something that I think has been, I've always been wanting to prove something to people. I remember my mom just being very worried about me because my sister was fine. She had people, telling her the opposite. But anyway, what I did with it was I made myself sick, and I became, looking back now, I became a victim. And I liked that because my mom, she had my back, from a while ago. And I remember getting into high school. My sister and I just started we moved, and my sister and I just started a new high school, and I just had my sister. And I remember we had the same group of friends in high school, and then my sister, she just did really well academically. And I found a lot of safety in not academics, but with sports and whatever else. And I enjoyed it, but what ultimately as well has come up for me is, like, I remember being a top swimmer in primary school, and when I went to high school, I went to try out for the high school swim team. And I remember thinking, like, in all my arrogance, that I was going to be the best from primary school. And I got in the pool and I wasn't the best. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that, because if I'm not the best at that, I don't want to do that. And then I would kind of just swap from one thing to another, from hockey to running and whatever else. And I got a lot of affirmation and approval from that, and I liked that. And I also started to make friends with, they weren't the wrong friends. I was always wrong, looking back, but I blamed them for a lot. And I remember where my behavior was really concerning for me was I took a cell phone. I stole a Blueberry cell phone from a friend, because Blueberry was the in thing, and I was also very materialistic growing up, because my family at one point couldn't afford, my dad hit during the recession, my dad couldn't afford to pretty much support us as a family, and my phone had just been stolen. So I thought, that's unfair. Like, somebody's stolen my phone, I'm going to take somebody else's phone. And I stole this phone, and long story short, it all came out, and this was in my matric year, and it was probably the worst year of my life. I became isolated. All my friends that I thought were my friends, they completely abandoned me, and I had my sister, and my sister still supported me. But through my high school years, I was a bully to my sister, if I'm being really honest. When I was friends with the friends that I was friends with, we used to bully my sister because she was smart, and she was doing the right things. I was a horrible sister to her, but she still had my back. And why this is quite important for me, especially in my recovery, I'll explain a bit later, but she's always had my back, but I've never been able to see it, including my mom and my dad. Anyway, after that whole thing that happened with the cell phone thing, my sister and I decided to take a gap year after school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I've never known what I wanted to do with my life. I've always just felt very lost in life. And after the gap year, my dad, he pushes education, but for the right reasons. Again, I blamed him for that, and I used that to fuel my resentment. This is what you made me do. This is your dreams. It's not mine. But in actual fact, he was always just wanting the best for me and my sister. And I remember my sister, she got accepted into UJ. I applied to UJ. I didn't get into UJ. And then ultimately, my mom said to me, "You've got to do something good. Like, you've got to do something that can sustain you in life." And I said, "Well, I have no idea what I'm going to do." And she's like, "Well, why don't you try what your sister's doing?" And I said, I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? And like, I've always struggled, and I still had that fear from grade 5, being stupid and being a failure, and just feeling very lost. And anyway, I decided to go into law, which ideally, I knew I was getting myself a bit in over my head on, but it was something that I didn't do for myself, really. I did it for my family's approval, also because I believed I was in this long competition with my sister. Everything was about a competition. And I remember doing my first semester law tests, and I failed every single test. And everyone in the class, they passed and whatever else. And I remember all that stuff from the past just coming up and thinking, oh, like, what am I doing here? Like, I'll never be good at anything. And I remember I went home that day and I cried, and I said to my mom, like, I can't do this. And she said, yes, you can. You've got to keep going. Like, you've got to face your fears, and, you've got to pray. And I did all of that, and it didn't work. But where I found my solution at the time was I went with a friend to a doctor, and the doctor prescribed me, so I didn't actually go to the doctor, if I remember correctly, to get medication for myself. It was actually for her. And I jumped in, and he said, because he started asking me questions, and I said, no, I'm struggling with law at the moment, and he prescribed me Ritalin. And I remember starting the Ritalin, and then doing my first semester, second set of tests, and I passed all of them with flying colours. And I was like, oh, this is good. Like, this is my solution. And I felt confident. I could do a lot more. Like, I started to, what I believe, be on the same level as other people in my class, and also my sister. And from being the worst student, I became one of the top students, and I got offered really incredible experiences with law. And for a long time that worked as my solution, and I liked having the label of being ADHD or OCD or whatever it was. And then I started to experience a lot of more fear, more inadequacy, and whatever else. And I started to go into antidepressants, antipsychotics. And I remember I wasn't sleeping, and I'd lost a lot of weight, and my mom was very worried. And she started to pick up the pattern of me, using substances like pills to help me. And she said to me that she was worried about me. And I remember I took my first drug of choice, which is a sleeping tablet. And I had a concussion. I fell down the stairs. And my mom was so petrified. I remember waking up in the ambulance, and I was unconscious. And she said to me, she was just crying, and I just remember them shining the light, and then I passed out and I woke up in the hospital bed, and all I could think about was where were my pills, and I just felt lost without my pills, and there was that fear and that anxiety, not knowing where it was, because I was so dependent on that solution. And it still wasn't enough for me having that first real consequence, having a concussion. It was also in my first or second year of articles. And I lied to work saying that I had fallen down the stairs, and I had minimized the fact that I was actually abusing, at that point in my mind, abusing prescription medication. And I wasn't coping with articles in any way, shape or form. And long story short, when I got home after my concussion, I used again, and then I remember getting back to work, and I remember my disease had progressed so much where I was going to the doctor and taking pills every day, but also going to the doctor maybe once or twice a week, getting my scripts, I was lying at pharmacies, I was lying at work. People could see that I wasn't okay, but I was still lying about it, and I used the mental illness side of my labels as a justification and whatever else to carry on doing what I was doing. And I remembered I started to forget certain things at work, and I got to work the next day, and I got called into the office by my principal, and she basically said to me that I had forgotten to send some notification for a court appearance and whatever else. And anyway, we almost lost the case because I forgot to send a notice of opposing to the attorneys, whatever. And she gave me a written warning. And in that moment, I felt so angry because I thought, I'm doing my best here. And, I believed that she was out to get me. But looking back now, that was actually quite a soft approach because of where I was stacking at work and what I was doing compared to other people. And I remember getting my articles, just going back, like my parents were so proud of me, like they were so proud of me, and like my sister was crying and she was like, wow, this is amazing, like I'm proud of you. But when my addiction really started to get quite bad, and I started to not only use pills and whatever else, also alcohol, my sister started to realize there was something wrong. But long story short, throughout my active addiction, by the grace of God, I believe my sister wasn't really there, so she didn't see it. But my poor mother had to bear the brunt of absolutely everything, from falling down the stairs to picking me up, to falling asleep, on chairs and picking me up and forgetting and falling over almost in the pool. My mother was there to pick up the pieces. And I'd forget. I'd wake up the next morning and she'd be crying, and I'd be like, what's wrong with you? And she'd be like, don't you remember? And I'd be like, no. And I would honestly believe the things that she told me I had done were not real, because it didn't make sense to me. And she said to me, something's wrong with you. And I said, no, like I'm just stressed, like you're stressful. And long story short, I went to my first treatment center. I had a panic attack at work, and I went to my first treatment center, which was in Johannesburg. I drove myself there. And it scared me because even though I liked feeling what I felt at the time with my drug of choice, I remember I was there for 2 days, and I still have the diary. I have this diary that I wrote when I got to this, it's actually a psychiatric facility, and I wrote here, and I was so judgmental and arrogant, and funny enough, like I wish I had the diary with me now, but I said something about all these people are crazy, they're talking about some weird solution, this is not going to work for me. But like the evidence was there that I was always looking for something else. And long story short, I was at that treatment center or that psychiatric unit for 2 days, and then I left. I went back to work, and things went straight back to how they were with regards to being unmanageable, dishonest. I was stealing a lot from my mother, also because I couldn't keep up with my addiction. And I remember going into my second treatment center, and I was in a relationship at the time, and I lied to my partner, and I said to him, I'm just very depressed and I'm very stressed. And I remember my sister actually pointed this out to me, like I think it was last year or something, and she said my first real treatment center that I went into, it was not a 12-step treatment center. I was like video recording the premises on Instagram, and I was like, I'm having like this, this lovely getaway, and completely in denial that I was actually there because I was a mess. and I'd hurt a lot of people. And I stayed there for 2 weeks and then I left, and then fast forward, things just got a lot worse. And the lying continued, the manipulation continued, the fear, everything was just getting so unbearable for me that I didn't know what to do. And then I went to another treatment center, and then finally I got to the treatment center on the House on the Hill, and I remember sitting in a concern group. Before I went to the House on the Hill, my parents gave me an ultimatum. They said, you need to go into this treatment center on Thursday, we've booked your flight, or else we're cutting you off completely. And I knew that they were blushing, because my dad would never throw me out on the street, my mother would never throw me out on the street, because I had this very sick hold over my mother, which ideally also came out a bit later as to how sick I made my mother and my father and my sister. And I remember my sister phoning me and she said, this is your last chance, like you've got to get your life in order. And I went to the House on the Hill, and I remember sitting in a women's group, and I was like, oh my word, this is definitely the first time I've ever experienced anything like, like that. And I thought, oh, I can't stay here. So I manipulated my counsellor. Well, I thought I did. And I booked a ticket back. I said I needed to go sort out court papers, and I relapsed. I went back to Joburg and I relapsed. And I remember my mom phoning the counsellor at the House on the Hill, and I was on the phone, and my mom was in tears and she was broken. I could not get off the plane and stay away from a substance for more than a few hours to sort out something so simple. Like I couldn't get off a plane, get in the car, go to like this workplace I needed to go to and fill out forms. That's all I needed to do. I could not do that. I was incapable of doing something so simple like staying clean and sober for a few hours just to get that done and get back on the plane and go to treatment. I prioritized my life by getting my substance first, and I couldn't even do that. And it was a positive thing, but I still justified my using, and I didn't do it. And then, in long story short, I went back into treatment, and I stayed at the House on the Hill for 3 months then. But what I did there, I ultimately, looking back and comparing it to my recovery journey this last time, I was hugely dishonest. I remember doing my life story and not feeling much because I was deaf and I was blind. Like I truly believe I was deaf and I was blind, because everything that was said the first time I was there versus the last time I was there was the same stuff. The book never changed, you know what I mean? The book stayed the same, but there was a lot that was different the second time versus the first time. I remember doing my step 5 and feeling very, very happy after my step 5, because I don't think I didn't connect to anything really. And doing my step 5 the second time in treatment, I remember I was absolutely distraught because I had connected to what I had done. And for the first time I realized, oh, this is self-centered fear. And I remember taking my old book and looking at my step 5, and I had the same resentment the first time and then second time in treatment. And I remember it was the same stuff. It was the same stuff, but I could see it differently this time, and I connected to the fact that I'm a horrible person. I've hurt people. Like my step 1, step 2, and step 3, I believe I experienced on the outside. And really, one counselor said to me when I was at the treatment center the first time was, what we're doing right now is we're going to ruin your using for you. And they did, because when I had a head full of recovery and I remember taking my first pull when I relapsed, I could not shut that voice down, because I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew that this was not my solution anymore, but I still wanted to try it. I wanted to try it because I had this obsession around being normal and wanting to be normal. And there's no such thing as normal. There's no such thing. Really, there isn't, but it's taken a lot for me to see that. And I remember, because this is probably one of the most powerful experiences I've experienced to get me to where I am. I remember I was sitting, I got so in the halfway house the first time, I remember praying to my higher power and just saying, please just get me a really good job, like a law job, because that's going to fix me, like good salary, and it's going to fix me. Because I remember I was working at a restaurant, Seabreeze, and I was so resentful. I didn't understand why I needed to do what I needed to do, get a humble job, you know, pay my way, whatever. And my boss gave me a fork to go and fork weeds in like 30-degree weather. And I thought, is this recovery? I don't want this. And I remember praying while I was forking weeds out, saying, God, please, can you just give me a job and get me out of here? And long story short, my manipulation and dishonesty, I got my mom involved, and I said to her, like, I don't want to be here. Like, these people are making me like do this, and it's not okay. And my poor mother, she fell into that, and I kept a dishonesty in the halfway house. I kept many dishonesties in the halfway house, but one of which was that I had this plan with my mother that I'm only going to stay 3 months, and after 3 months I'm going to go do what I want to do, because I'm going to try this, I'm going to try it. And long story short, I remember going to a braai. It was somebody in the fellowship's braai, and I remember sitting at that braai and just feeling so isolated and so alone, and I was judging everyone there. Like, I hate to admit it, but I was in the midst of my disease, and I didn't see it at the time. And I just thought, recovery is a lie. Like, how are these people having fun in the pool? Like, they're happy, joyous, and they're free. I didn't believe it. And long story short, I was like, oh, like, I'm over this, and I manipulated the situation to take somebody back to the halfway house, and then I drove to Toti to go and look at fans, which was not the case. I drove to Toti because I didn't want to be around anyone. I was lying, I was dishonest, and I wanted to get away, and my behavior at that time already was not okay. Like, I knew in that moment when I was on my way to Toti, not telling my sponsor what I was doing, where I was going, lying about the fact in a concern group, that I was going to pick up, because my experience is I didn't just pick up a substance. It didn't happen that way. My thinking manifested into such a powerful state of mind, and then I picked up. I didn't just pick up. It was a whole bunch of dishonesties, manipulate everything together that led up into that point that I didn't believe at the time that recovery would work for me. I just obviously forgot the chapter where it says how it works and into action, because clearly it does work. And I lied about that whole situation, and fast forward a bit, I left the halfway house and I manipulated my counselor into thinking, can I leave a day early just to surprise my mother? But in the back of my mind I had this plan that I would drive past the pharmacy, but not going to go into the pharmacy. Maybe I need a Coke, but maybe I should just get painkillers in case I have a headache, but then maybe just buy the sleeping tablets just in case I can't sleep. And that whole, like, absolute mad thinking and insanity around that whole situation. Anyway, I used as soon as I got in the car. I got home and I lied to my mom. I still sent a video on the halfway house group showing everybody that I had arrived safely, and I was surprising my mother with flowers, completely dishonest, but I was high at the time. But it didn't come out yet. And my sister got engaged the first time I was in treatment, and then her engagement was that December that I'd left the halfway house. I manipulated my family into thinking I could still drink, because it's the pills that's the problem. It's not alcohol. And I drank the whole way through. And I remember I was at the V&A waterfront, and I was supposed to meet 2 members from the fellowship there. And God really has a funny way of putting people in the right place at the right time. And I remembered looking out. I had my glass of wine, and I remember looking out, and I saw this person from the fellowship walking. I thought, oh no, people are going to find out, because at that time I still thought people thought I was okay. That's how mad I was. And anyway, long story short, it came out. Eventually it came out. I got kicked out of the halfway house. And the point I want to get to is that I prayed to my high power, and I asked him for a job. And I truly believe that when I pray, even in recovery today, I need to be careful what I pray for, because God gives me what I ask for. He really does. And I said, please just give me this job, and this job will fix everything. And he gave me the job. And how that unfolded was incredible. He gave me the perfect job. I was still drinking at the time. My disease had progressed, which again I didn't believe was possible. It does progress, and it progressed fast. And I remember I started that job, and I was so in over my head. And I remembered getting into work the one day, and my boss's partner turned around and said to me, "You look like an addict, like you look ill, what's going on?" And I used that as again a manipulative tactic to run away and avoid whatever. And then I thought, oh God, like these people are going to find out who I really am, you know. And I also lied to them about where I was over that period of time, because they said to me, "But what have you been doing?" I said, "No, I went on a sabbatical at the South Coast, and I looked around in KZN, and I enjoyed my life, and now I want to get back into law." And they believed me. And long story short, I remember sitting at my desk, and I was withdrawing and feeling absolutely hopeless and lost. But I knew at the back of my mind where the solution was. I knew it because there was a seed that had been planted. And I received the summons, and there was a message on the bottom of the summons that said Scottborough. And then it said halfway house. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I can't see any signs here. And then I got a message from my old counsellor asking me for the halfway house keys. So I ran to the bathroom and I got on my knees and I just started crying. And I replied to the message and I said to her, I've sent the keys to you, but I didn't. I had the keys with me in the bathroom, funny enough. And I held onto the keys, and I didn't want to let go of those keys because I knew that I was coming back. Like I knew, but I just didn't know when. And I laugh about it now because I believe that this was my step one and really my step two. And I remember the last time I took alcohol, I was in my room, and the drugs, the alcohol, everything had stopped working. It had stopped working, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I don't want to go back there because I know what I have to do. I have to face this stuff. I have to face the people I've lied to. I have to own what I've done, and that's too much for me. So I'm going to take my life because that's easy, and that's quick. And I remember taking the rope, wrapping it around my neck, whatever, and I remember just looking to the left-hand side, and there was this picture of my family, and I broke down. And for the first time in my life, I believed that the hand of God was there, and I phoned my old counsellor, and the God in that as well was, she wasn't meant to take my call that day because she never answers no numbers when she's with a child, and she picked up the phone by the grace of God, and I said to her, I need to come back, I need help. And anyway, long story short, this was just before the lockdown period. I went down to my mother and I said to her, please Mom, like I need to go back to that place. And she said, no you don't, like it didn't work for you the first time. I was thinking, like that's how sick I made my mother. I said like, no, I need to go back there. And she said, no you don't. So she's like, go to the other place that I went to. I said, no, I need to go back there. I said, all I'm asking for, I had no idea how I was going to pay for my treatment. I had no idea how I was going to get there or what it was. I had no money. I had absolutely nothing. For the first time in my life, and by the grace of God, I thank God for this moment, I had nothing. I was out of plans. I was out of energy, and I was tired. I was like, I actually don't care. All I'm asking, Mom, is please just book me a flight. And then I left, and then I remembered I had my last few sips of alcohol and whatever else transpired from that. I don't really remember, but she got me a flight. And I remembered my mother was so fearful on the way to the airport that we got stopped by Metro Police. She had nothing on her, and she broke down when Metro Police called her out of the car, and she just broke down. And I got out the car and I said to this guy, I said, look, my mom's trying to help me. I need to get to hospital. I'm going to rehab. And everything from making that decision to get back into treatment, everything opened up. Like there were doors opening up left, right, and center. The day I got into treatment, which was the 15th of March. I remember that the treatment center went into hard lockdown, no one in and out on the Tuesday, which was the day I was supposed to fly because of COVID. And I always think back to that point of thinking, what would I have done if I had stayed with my mother during lockdown? And that scares me because I think I probably would have killed her before I would have killed myself. And my journey this last time around doing the steps was probably the most daunting thing I've ever done in my life, because I realized I really needed to look at what I had done and the people I'd hurt. And there were a lot of lengths I had to face in treatment this time, and it was just purely around getting honest. Like if I'm looking at it, they weren't hard lengths. It was just around just being honest And my step one for me was literally just around being rigorously honest about everything. I remember I couldn't wait to let go and expose all that madness. So as soon as I saw, my old counselor, I went to her and I just said to her, like, I can't wait even till my step 5. I need to tell you this stuff because it's been killing me. And I just remember the last time I felt safe, loved, and at home was at that treatment center. And I remember getting there and somebody saying to me, welcome home, and I just cried. I was like, yeah, like I am. And my journey started there, and I just try to do things the opposite to what I did. So where I would take smokes, I tried not to do that. Where I would lie about something, I tried not to. If I did, I would own it, like I did when I stole a pair of socks. Like, that's also a huge part of my recovery, and I still talk about it because I knew when I took those socks what was going to happen because of the dishonesty, because dishonesty has been a huge part in my recovery. I knew it wasn't about the socks, it was about me taking the socks and holding on to that. And knowing if I didn't expose this, and I believe that this was a part of a reference point for me, I knew what would happen if I had held on to that. I knew. And by exposing it, I was fearful to expose it because I was fearful of what people would think. I'm nowhere, again, feeling a failure, and this isn't working for me. But I remembered literally just saying, like, I don't want another relapse. I'll face those consequences of owning up to stealing a pair of socks than relapsing. And now it's like cake and death if I really look at it. And long story short, I went into the halfway house, and it was probably the best experience of my life. I have friends today who I was in the halfway house and a treatment with who I'm still friends with today. They called me out on my shit. They helped me in my recovery. And I'm still friends with them today, and they've been my lifelines. And I remembered starting a job in early recovery that I probably, I don't know, by the grace of God, I don't know how I got through that job. And yeah, it was a hard job, but it also showed me how important, because I missed this in early recovery, was how important my foundation is, because I didn't think I knew a foundation. And I love the analogy of like the house. Like I worked in a housing development company, and I remembered watching them with the foundation, literally putting in the foundation of the house, and how much work it took to put in the foundation, and time and planning. And I thought, oh, that's like my recovery. I need to put in the effort and the action and the work to get in a solid foundation, and I missed that the first time. And I truly believe that God's been on this journey with me from the beginning. And my sister today, my relationship with my sister and my mother is my sister said to me, I had a call with her even like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. She just started crying because she's actually been struggling with depression, and she wanted to end her life and whatever else, and she doesn't have a solution. So she's got all the material things, external things in life, the house, the dog, the potential husband, the perfect job, and she's unhappy and she wants to end her life. And I'm living in a rehab. I don't have much. I've got good friends, but like comparing to my sister, and I'm happy. And she said to me, for the first time in her life, she said she's jealous of what I have. She said, I never thought in my life I'd be jealous of what you have, but she's proud of me. And she's always been my supporter. And a friend in recovery always used to say this, and it really hits home, that it's like, no matter what I do, as long as I'm in recovery, my recovery will always be the biggest gift to my family. I could go and practice law and whatever. It doesn't matter what I'm doing or whatever those external things are, but as long as I have my recovery, like my family they're happy and they're safe and they're okay. And my mom and dad's relationship has never been better. Who would have thought? I actually thought my parents were going to go through a divorce because of me, but now they're able to have a marriage. I'm able to give my sister time to enjoy her life, and like for the first time, she's getting married this year, and for the first time I'm able to make it about her, because my whole life I've made it about me, and I never saw it that way. And yeah, I think just anything else about what I've learned in my very, very short time in recovery is that, like, if I'm not on top of certain things and I don't get it right, I had a really hard day on Friday, and it again just kind of showed me how powerful my disease is, because it's very easy for me to run and to give up and to just throw in the towel. Like, it's easy because, like, my head's always constantly, it's always telling me just to do something else other but anything but this. And I turned to someone in recovery, and they helped me, and that was again symbolic of the fact that as long as I keep doing this, and I keep thinking about like what Dougie always used to say, and I share about it a lot, because those words will always stay with me. It's like, if I can't do the small things in my recovery, there's no way I'll be able to do the big things in my recovery. And yeah, just like one of the highlights from my my time in recovery was also like Dougie's funeral. Like, that's been a big motivating factor in my recovery, was seeing how many people were there for him. And I never had that many people, even when I thought I was doing okay in life, and that he had passed a message to me even on his deathbed, was that life is so short. And that was the message he carried to me, was life is so short. And today, I believe I am living life to the best of my ability, and I'm living life to the fullest. There's still more things I'd like to do in my life, but what recovery's given me is it's given me freedom, a lot of freedom, and it's given me true friendships and relationships with people who I've never had before, and it's given my family a life. It's given them a life, and ideally that's been one of my biggest gifts in recovery. And for the first time, I can also be there for my sister when she's going through something which I went through, and she turned to me, which is incredible. And I never believed that this program could work for me, but it did. I just needed to try and be willing, and that's all I've done is just try to be willing, and just by the grace of God, I'm still here. And yeah, I think if anything, it's like, if anyone is just doubting this program at any days, because I sometimes do, it's like there's a life beyond your wildest dreams, which I never thought was possible, and I'm experiencing it, and it's only getting better. But I've got to face those fears. I've got to go against my head, and resentment's also been one thing that's almost taken me out in recovery, because I didn't realize how powerful it was. And I need to keep reminding myself, and my sponsor keeps reminding myself, that I'm the problem. I am still the problem, and I forget that. But that also brings, humility to the fact that I am an alcoholic, and I'm happy to be an alcoholic in recovery. So yeah, I'll just leave it there, and thanks for letting me share.